Hello, this is Justin Williams with the Wolfpacker Podcast. I'm joined today, as always, by editor of the Wolfpacker.com and fellow co-host Matt Carter. Yes, we are going to break down NC State's Week 1 win over ECU. Matt, should I just leave it at that? 1-0. Moving on. That could be the podcast.
You're going to put the win in air quotes?
Yeah, great win. Doesn't matter how much it was by. Doesn't matter how it looked. Doesn't matter how it happened. A win is a win, and if NC State gets to the end of the season and they find a way to run the table or they win 11 games, nobody's going to be looking back saying, "Hey, 1-point win over ECU, that one doesn't count." But we're going to get into all that good stuff. Before we do, some quick reminders for the listeners and viewers at home. You can listen to this podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Subscribe, rate, and review. We're on Apple, Spotify, Google Play. Plus, you can always watch us on our YouTube channel. You should subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't already. And please give this video a thumbs up. Drop a comment as well. I'll give you a comment prop. Tell me who your favorite player in this game was. Maybe a breakthrough candidate, maybe one of the old reliables. There were some big plays in this game, but I think I got an idea for who a lot of people will answer. We'll get into him a little bit later. Last reminder, sign up for the Wolfpacker.com. For just $1, you can get a year's worth of premium subscription to the Wolfpacker.com as part of the On3 network. So you get all the premium news and information, access to the message boards, the inside scoop on everything NC State athletics. So take advantage of that deal. $1 gets you a year, so it'll take you well through this current athletics season on through week 1 of next year. All right, Matt, let's talk about this game, because I think I'd like to speak for a lot of our listeners here to say that my heart rate got a little bit high earlier than I expected to this season, this morning in general. Everybody check your blood pressure. Make sure you're eating well, low cholesterol the rest of the week, because, man, that was the definition of cardiac pack. Taking down ECU 21-20, winning by the skin of its teeth, really. Yes, you could say NC State got away with one there, but you could also make the argument that NC State should have been ahead by much more than it was in the final minutes of the fourth quarter. So, Matt, I just want to go for your instant reaction, and then we'll just kind of let it take us from there. Just your impressions of this win. If you're an NC State fan, what should you be thinking about this result? Should you be happy that your team found some luck in the fourth quarter and snuck away with a win that smelled every bit of NC State stuff potentially in week 1, or should you be a little disappointed that NC State didn't really play to the caliber that Vegas suggested with that 11.5 point spread, and what a lot of people thought NC State was going to look like going into this game as the preseason number 13 team in the country?
Yeah, I'm actually looking at my phone because I sent a picture. My heart rate, I have an Apple Watch that measures my heart rate. I'm in the 3 or the 4 o'clock hour, which is when the dramatic one happened. My heart rate range went from 66 on the low end to 137 on the high end, which I'm pretty sure that 137 was right during that, was maybe for about 5 seconds on the kick. But yeah, it just I'm watching at home. Before we get started, kudos to Ethan McDowell, the rookie. Here within Greenville, covering the game for the first time, kind of peel back the curtain a little bit. Both of us had tested positive for COVID. We're both fine, but my quarantine did not end until Friday. Ethan's ended earlier, and so just to be safe, we sent Ethan to Greenville. So I had to watch it from home, which I told Justin I didn't, and I really didn't like that. I much rather prefer to be in the stadium. Although I get the benefit of watching a lot of football on the other side of it. But if you're an NC State fan, I think the natural instant reaction is to want to throw up after a game like that. When you take in the context of everything in particular, um, you know, you're hoping for a magical double-digit win season, and if you're blunt about it, it looks like an 8-4 type of team playing out there. Yeah, I, I've always been. I think Justin, you've said I'm pretty good about not getting too high after the wins and not getting too lows after the losses, or in this case, you know, too low after a win on paper, I guess. Um, yeah, I thought NC State played a C minus, D plus type of game, probably closer to C minus, and I think ECU didn't play an A game because you got to remember ECU had a punt block. They missed two kicks, two interceptions by Holton Halers. So far from a perfect game for ECU, but I thought they played for them a B plus game. I thought they played much closer to their full capability, and what we learned is maybe the margin for error for NC State not as good as we think. But they were lucky, and you're right though. I felt like, and I wrote in my column, score a touchdown on either one of those moments at the 1 yard line, I think the game's over. NC State at that point up 28-14. I don't think ECU comes back. So I don't think they're as far or as bad as they probably look on the surface. I just think they kept getting in their way, and they were just maybe one or two plays away a lot in this game from kind of rolling, and they just couldn't ever get into that roll. And credit ECU, too. NC State gave them life, and in the fourth quarter, ECU dominated. I mean, NC State was lucky. ECU took it to them in the fourth quarter when they saw the opening. I don't know if it was the heat, the crowd, or what, but yeah. I think the only thing you can say is that's a game NC State would have lost 9 times out of 10 under normal circumstances. So maybe that's a sign of good things to come.
I think it's okay to not know how to feel. If you're someone that's followed NC State athletics and NC State football your entire life, I mean, it's just not a normal feeling for NC State. And it just, like I said in the intro, it's a game that 99 times out of 100, NC State comes out of that game, out of Dowdy Ficklen Stadium with a loss, just based on how the events unfolded in the fourth quarter. I think you're being maybe a little tough on NC State in the first half. I liked what I saw. I thought NC State, executed according to the script, short of falling behind 7-0. That's something that we talked about in the preview podcast. Important game, week 1 on the road in front of a sold out crowd. You want to start strong. You don't want to let that crowd get going. And it did. But NC State looked like a mature team and looked like a number 13 team in the country when it responded with 21 unanswered points before the half. Settled the crowd down. And I expected at halftime that this NC State team was going to do what it did several times over the past 2 seasons, which is they'd score before the half, take the 21-7 lead. They'd get the kickoff return back at the beginning of the second half, and then they'd go down, score a touchdown early third quarter on that first drive. And then you're looking at a 28-7 game, in which case then ECU has to start reaching a little bit. They got to start throwing the ball some more. Maybe they get a little bit more aggressive on defense, trying to go for turnovers. Maybe that opens up some things on the offensive side of the ball. So, I think if NC State executes on that first series in the second half, we could be looking at a game where NC State wins this handedly. But as soon as ECU was able to make a stop on that first drive of the second half, it was almost like the momentum shifted and ECU started playing like the really confident team out there. You could tell in the fourth quarter just by the body language that ECU just looked like the more confident bunch. NC State got knocked on the goal line there in the fourth quarter. Demi Sumo had that amazing run. I think it was for about a 20-yard gain or so. He ran over about two Pirates defenders, got him to the 1 yard line, and then they try to run up the gut with Sumo again multiple times. Maybe you would have liked for the referees to maybe blow their whistle a little bit sooner on a couple of those plays. That second goal line stand that ECU made.
And that
The
helped.
referees.
I mean, you can't deny that. That helped ECU.
Yeah. So you burned two of your plays that you're going to use right there because you showed ECU exactly what you're going to do. But I would say, just from if I want to be critical, look, I don't know what I'm doing compared to Tim Beck. He obviously has a fountain of football knowledge, way more compared to me. But just from the spectator's view, I would have liked to see maybe just one opportunity, Devin Leary, to make a play with his arm, as opposed to running it up, 4 run plays in a row, getting stuffed at the goal line. Maybe down the road the play calling is going to change a bit in those goal line situations. It's week 1 for everybody. You're learning your personnel. Offensive line would like to have that game back, but yeah. So where do you want to go from here, Matt? You want to talk about Devin Leary, or you want to talk about Demi Sumo?
I was trying to say, real quick, I agree with you wholeheartedly about it. I think the third quarter was the quarter of missed opportunity for NC State. And that first drive, they had a 3rd and 7, which was manageable, not ideal, and they got a false start that turned it into a 3rd and 12, and that kind of makes it a very difficult situation. And then you had the 2 plays at the goal. ECU did come down and score. I think NC State got a 15-yard penalty on that drive that ECU went down and scored, and I believe they got away with another one, too, on a late hit where they picked up the flag and shouldn't have, but
Yep, Tanner Engel, right?
yeah, and but then NC State got to the 1 yard line twice, and like I said, you punch one of those in, I do believe the game's over, and they didn't. And even in both situations, it was so tough. Did Jordan Houston fumble? I don't know. I think he was reaching out while lying on a bunch of guys' bodies. He was practically down by every sense of the word, but no angle to prove that a body part was touching the ground. I don't think that fumble was forced or anything. Yeah, I'm not so sure Demi Sumo might not have gotten in on one of those early plunges. And then I did think, Dave Dorn wasn't using it as an excuse. But the one where they blew the whistle when nobody called a timeout when Devin Leary was sneaking it in.
Yeah.
That's one of those what are you doing referee moments.
Yeah.
I think they said something about ball placement or something like that. But then Dorn said they couldn't run that play because they just showed what they were going to do on the center. But I'll say this about the offense, because I know that's what people are probably most apprehensive about. I don't think they were as far as people want to come away from this game from thinking. If you tell me that Demi Sumo, come by, we'll call him Demi Sumo. Slimy Shark is his nickname.
Yeah.
If he's gonna run, if he's gonna run like that, and Jordan Houston, I thought ran pretty well too. And if they collectively are going to run for 4 to 4.5 yards a carry this year, I think NC State's going to be fine. I thought Devin Leary was a little off. I think some of it was, I thought he was really good down the seam, up the middle of the field, those 15, 20-yard range. For whatever reason, the kind of controlled short passing game and the sideline passes weren't working. But, you're confident that'll come. So if NC State can run the football like that and just get Devin Leary to kind of be a little bit more like Devin Leary, I think they'll be fine on offense. I really do. There was some positive to take away from this game, and I agree with you. They just missed that third quarter with the missed opportunity to put it away.
Well, yeah, I agree with the points on offense. Definitely some positives to take away. I think number one being you've got something special with your sophomore running back, Demi Sumo. He looked like a beast out there. He looked like a guy, that is technically the running back 2 on the depth chart. Although, Matt, maybe you can correct me here on the depth chart. Is there an or next to Demi Sumo's name, or is he this official
Uh,
second string running
yeah, he
back?
was just officially second string.
Well, that could be something to watch, as the season progresses, because Demi Sumo certainly played like a guy that deserves an or next to his name at some point down the road if he keeps running the ball like that. And I agree with you. I thought Jordan Houston, had a fine game. I just thought Sumo was just a little bit more impressive with his opportunities. Of course, the running backs can only take what the opportunities that they get. So
Yeah.
just because Jordan Houston didn't have some of the electric runs that Sumo had, it doesn't mean that he's not the same capable player, that he's not a better player. Just that, the blocks that he was getting just didn't pan out as well as Sumo. Running game was about, it kind of reminded me a little bit of last year, just talented backs. Maybe you'd like a little bit more of the run game, but I thought all in all it was fine. And they did average. I mean, what would they average as a collective unit? 4.2 a carry. That includes -2 from the team and 1 yard on 2 attempts from Leary. So from those backs, you're looking more like 4.5 a carry. But the thing that I think was a little bit concerning on offense was just the passing game just did not look fluid, and I think it starts at quarterback. Devin Leary didn't look like an ACC Player of the Year. He didn't have a bad game. I didn't think he had a bad game, but I think he had a bad game by his standards.
Right.
I think he's a guy that holds himself in high regard. I think he's a guy that sees himself as a first round NFL draft pick. I think he's a guy that sees himself as the ACC Player of the Year, and this program has rallied behind him. He's a guy that they made a campaign that's a Heisman campaign, but they're not calling it a Heisman campaign. Well, you're not going to be able to afford many more games like that if you wanted to ever see Devin Leary make the trip to New York later this season. Not saying that he can't turn around, because he certainly could. I mean, next week against Charleston Southern, he could light him up. He could get right back in rhythm. Throw for 400 yards, throw for 5 touchdowns. Maybe that's exactly what he needed. But Matt, this was something that we talked about, going into the last podcast. Leary just hasn't had much experience in hostile road environments. The one that jumps out to you is that Mississippi State game last year. And it was another scenario where NC State just didn't look like itself. I kind of got some similar feelings from this game. We're going to look down the road. I think ECU is going to be a solid team. I think they're going to be a bowl team, but I don't think they're going to be anything more than 8-4, 7-5 at the most. So if NC State ends up turning this around and having the type of season that it wants to have, that it thinks it can have, they're going to look back on this game saying that they left some on the table. But as for the defense, go ahead, Matt. Go ahead.
Remember, too, they had games like this kind of last year. Louisiana Tech just happened to be at home, but they needed an interception at the last play of the game in the end zone to pull that one out, if people remember. So, they're not immune to this type of game. They're not Georgia. They're going to, walk the dogs on Oregon, in week 1.
Yeah.
So, they're not immune to it. I'd say one more thing about the offense. I think they need to speed up a little bit. I think Devin Leary is better when you just go. And I thought it was kind of a methodical approach today. It wasn't hurry up. It wasn't get to the line and go. There wasn't a lot of speedball. I don't know if that's what ECU was doing. Maybe I do know that. Look, I know these NC State coaches are very conscious of game conditions, for instance. They're very conscious of keeping their defense fresh. They don't want to wear out, and so it's a balance you have to walk. But I thought this game maybe speed up a little bit more. I didn't see a whole lot of tempo from NC State in this game, and and part of that may have been just because of the way the offense was moving, where they didn't get a string of completions to just go, go, go. But that's something I would like to see. I think Leary operates faster. When he operates faster, he's more effective, and that's why he's so great in 2-minute offense. But for whatever reason, I just felt like they were a little bit methodical today out there. But
Yeah, if you if you give NC State, a C minus overall grade for this game, and I agree with that. I put them at a C, and just because NC State's identity is complementary football. It's a three facet game for NC State, and their idea is, well, if one of our sides of the football isn't playing at its best, then we're going to have strong special teams and we're going to have a strong defense, and that's going to help us win games when maybe our offense isn't clicking on all cylinders. But if you want to break it down to like an offense defense, I'd give the offense a D. I'd give the defense a B, because I saw plenty to like from the defense. I thought the final drive ECU scored, you would have liked them to step up a little bit in that situation and take control of the situation like a top 5 caliber defense in the country would do. And I think that's the expectation for this group. You've got a really, really strong group of linebackers, as we know. I don't think they performed to their best level. Didn't see as much pressure in the backfield as maybe I had anticipated from this linebacker core. But what I did like a lot was how well the secondary played, because I thought there were a couple more missed opportunities for some picks in this game. They came away with 2 in the first half, but there's a couple 50-50 balls there down the stretch in the second half that I think if NC State had to do it over again, they might have been able to pick off Holton Ahlers maybe a third or even fourth time. And it's just good to see how aggressive they're being on making plays on the ball. I'd say that's something to watch. I think this NC State defense is going to force a lot more turnovers this year just based on how aggressive they're playing. But how did you see the defense performing as a unit, as a whole? And also, could you, whatever from the post-game availability, what's the status of Peyton Wilson, a guy that, left the game and was in street clothes on the sideline in the second half of this game?
Yeah, it's a great question. I don't know. Dorn said that they were going to have to. Dave Dorn said they were going to have to wait to talk to the doctors, so there was no update on him or Trent Penix, which would be a bit of a blow for the offense if Penix can't go. I thought he was knocked out on the head at first, but I guess he was holding a wrist or arm, so it may be an injury there. So we'll have to see how that plays out. But I will say, I thought Jalen Scott played one of his better games coming in. I saw him making some plays. I saw number 2 around the ball when he came in, which was, kind of in the past with Jalen Scott. You got steady, you got not a lot of mistakes, but not necessarily a lot of plays either. Kind of a steady Eddie. This time he looked like a playmaker. I actually think, he's one of my guys that I thought stood out from what I saw, but I give the defense a good, certainly a better grade than the offense. B. I did think they missed too many tackles, and part of this is a byproduct of how East Carolina approaches the game. Very little shots downfield. This would, I would guess that 90% of Holton Ahlers' passes were within 5 to 10 yard range in the air. Very quick, neutralizing the front for NC State. Like you said, I thought the secondary, broke up quite a few passes. I mean, you could call them drops from East Carolina. I think they were broken up they got hit hard in the back or hard in the shoulder when the ball got there and it knocked the ball loose. I thought the pass interference call on Aiden White was a weak call. I know the TV announcer said that was like a no-brainer, but I didn't see it. Not on the replay they showed. And I know Aiden White was very unhappy. And that kind of led to the last touchdown for ECU. So I thought the defense, by and large, played to tackle them was the one issue. And the thing that came to my mind is, they were very cautious about their veterans in training camp, not giving them too many reps to risk injury and to wear them out, to have them fresh. And it's a fine line you walk. I would take the same approach. I think you would too, right, Justin? If you had all these all-ACC caliber defensive players, you don't need to see a whole lot out of them.
Absolutely.
From training camp. But I do wonder, that's such a hard line to balance to walk. Did that show up a little bit with some of the tackling? today, and that was probably my one concern for the defense. A little bit too much missed tackles, not enough pressure on Holton Ailey. And I'll say this: I thought Holton Ailey played a really good game. Um, he's a gamer, and Desmond Ridder is no longer there at Cincinnati. I don't know who the other quarterbacks are in the AAC, but I could easily see Holton Ailey being a all AAC caliber quarterback by the end of the season. He's been there 100,000 years now, and so he's seen everything. One of my one worries was ECU had all summer to prepare for this game, and you knew they were going to prepare for it like it was a Super Bowl for them. And you saw that. You saw an effort of a team that spent months getting ready for this game. And so, that was clear. That was very clear. I'm with you. I'm curious to see what ECU will do for the rest of the year, and how this holds up. But I thought they gave a good effort for their offense. But you cannot fault too much on the defense. They gave up only 20 points and about 350 total yards. You said before the game, ECU got 20 points and 350 total yards, and the running backs were held in check. You would have thought NC State won, probably covering the spread.
Well, I mean, ECU's point total is exactly, kind of lived up to the expectation. The ECU team total in Vegas was 20, and they had 20 points. Should have had 21, but as NC State fans know firsthand, sometimes you're the team that has the kicker that misses at the wrong time, and sometimes you're the team that benefits from those moments. So tough for ECU to lose like that. Certainly a game that probably should have ended up going to overtime. NC State, this is now 2 games in a row that needed some magic in the late fourth quarter to come away with a win. Not exactly the way you had anticipated winning the game, but you take the W nonetheless and you move on. And now this team is going to have 3 weeks really to get ready for the biggest game of the season at home. They're going to come back to Charleston Southern. That's going to be a nice dress rehearsal. I don't expect Charleston Southern to give NC State quite the scare like ECU did. I don't know what to expect with Texas Tech, but
that game comes on a little bit larger for me now. I want to see, post test, you passed, but not impressively, right? You met the seawall, to use the old college terminology. But I don't know if they still do that. Do they still do that, Justin? Seawall classes where you have to have a C to get credit for it?
I don't know. I mean, I'm a washed up post grad too, man. So
maybe we should ask Ethan that.
Not when I was in school, but
okay. In the old days when I was in school, they had what were called seawall classes, where you could not get credit for the class towards the graduation unless you got at least a C on it. And so NC State passed the seawall here, but now I want to see Texas Tech. You want to see that's a Power 5 opponent. Let's get this one at home. Let's see some dramatic. You're not, what are you going to see against Charleston Southern, right? Besides a lot of the backups get some opportunities. So,
well, I'd like to see the offense move,
and they will
efficiently.
Yeah,
they will. Yeah, I mean, I hope they will.
Yeah,
I mean, I'd like to see it.
Yeah, and then Texas Tech comes to say, okay, how much improvement have we seen from East Carolina? And can we just discard East Carolina, kind of a fluky opener, crazy setup, build up, weird thing happen type of deal, or did ECU, was it a precursor of some alarming thing to happen? So that Texas Tech game probably takes on a large importance for me at this point.
Well, ECU's defense surprised me a little bit. I didn't think that. I mean, look, ECU's had some dudes on that field. I knew that they were going to have a decent offense. That was where I thought ECU was going to be able to maybe scare NC State. I didn't think that ECU's defense was going to cause this many issues for NC State's offense. So, I don't know if that should be credited to ECU's defense. I don't know if that should be blamed on NC State's offense. Probably the truth is somewhere in the middle, a little bit of both. Texas Tech obviously is going to come in with that Big 12 reputation, going to want, maybe more of a shootout. So it'll be a nice test for the defense, and you'd like to see NC State maybe get a little bit more efficiency on the offensive end. But hey, when you can steal 7 points on a punt block, I mean, how many times have we seen NC State do that the past 2 seasons? The special teams unit just continues to be, a great strength for this team, for this program. So
Right.
something to keep in mind for these 50-50 games.
Yeah, if you want to go ahead to game ball, that leads perfectly into mine.
Okay, go ahead. Give it away.
I'm going way off to probably a first, but I'm going to give it to special teams coordinator Todd Goebel. I thought the special teams were special, and obviously the block punt stands out. But pinning, they had the one time they pinned him at the 1 yard line.
Yep.
If they punch it in on one of those, that's one of the 4 runs from the 1 yard line. We're talking about how Thayer Thomas had a 20-yard punt return to get him at excellent field position at the 24. There were no miscues on the.
And I think that was the punt following the punt block. ECU was pinned to its own goal line once again. It was ECU's next punt.
Well, no, it was when Jordan Houston fumbled. ECU didn't move the ball, and they had to punt from their own end zone. And then that's when Thayer got.
What I liked about it, though, is that NC State dialed it up perfectly, where ECU was expecting the Dogs to go after that punt, and they went full block mode and allowed Thayer Thomas to have that great return. They didn't send the Dogs. So I just the play. You want to give some credit to the play calling on special teams. A+ on the special teams today.
Yeah, so ever since Todd Goebel has come to NC State, that's been pretty consistent. Since he's been the special teams coordinator, they've been really good on special teams the last 3 years now since he's arrived. So I think he deserves a lot of credit for what he's done to that unit. And they didn't make mistakes. And that's the difference in the game. East Carolina had several special team mistakes, and NC State had none. So none of a catastrophic variety, at least.
Well, I love that game ball pick, and I love it even more because I was going to give mine to Demi Sumo. So thank you for not taking that from me. Yeah, I mean, Demi Sumo, I can give his stats: 14 carries, 79 yards, and a touchdown. Probably deserved a second one, but can't overturn something that's not undisputable. So he had his opportunities, but thought he looked great. Thought he looked like a nice physical, fast back. I mean, he almost looked like a bigger Bam Knight out there. And that,
I'll be honest, when he's running, he looks different when he's running. He almost looks like, you want to say, he looked kind of like a pro running it. I mean, he's only a sophomore, so we'll see if he develops. But I agree, he just looks different.
He looked like he was doing his best Derrick Henry impression on that, on that run that set up the second goal line stand for ECU. But yeah, Demi Sumo, like what I see, would love to see more. So yeah, I guess that'll do it for this podcast. NC State moving on to week 2, 1-0. ACC hanging in there. We can address it briefly as we close up, but Boston College losing to Rutgers, that's not good. Virginia Tech losing to Old Dominion, that's not good. UNC was expected to have a fight with App State, wins by the skin of its teeth by 2 points on a late failed 2-point conversion. Boone in a crazy game that was played in the 60s.
Giving up 40 points in the fourth quarter, not good.
No. So, I mean,
6 touchdowns in the fourth quarter.
I mean, NC State's going to go. NC State's going to have some things to work on in week 2. Everybody else in the ACC is going to have some things to work on.
Yeah.
You know who looked the most impressive for the ACC this week? Duke. Duke looked the most impressive against Temple. Now
we still got Florida State to go against LSU, and
we still got Clemson and Georgia Tech.
Give it to Pittsburgh.
Yeah, Pitt was impressive. Although its defense wasn't as impressive as I thought.
But that was West Virginia.
Sure. Yeah, it's backyard brawl, rivalry game. Pitt looked solid, but I mean, I don't know. What is West Virginia going to be this year? Like, are they
more than Temple?
Yeah. Okay. It was a little bit of a joke. I mean, first year head coach. We know Duke's going to win, but maybe 3 or 4 games this year. But I'm just saying the ACC as a whole. I think we were talking about on the preview podcast. You had predicted the ACC to run the gauntlet this weekend. Well,
yeah, that blew up.
Well. Anyways, that's going to do it for this podcast. We'll have more on the next podcast previewing the Charleston Southern matchup.
Woohoo!
I'm sure. Yeah, we'll probably end up being a recap part 2 of this game, and here's a couple names from Charleston Southern. Enjoy your old Toughies. Enjoy the game at Carter Finley Stadium. But again, that's going to do it for this podcast. Remember, you can subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to podcasts: Apple, Spotify, Google Play. We're there. You can also watch us on YouTube. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't already. Give this video a thumbs up and drop a comment while you're at it. You can follow us on social media at the Wolfpacker is the main account on Twitter. You can give me a follow personally at Justin H. Will, and give us a like on Facebook, NC State Wolfpack on the Wolfpacker.com. Last but not least, head over to the Wolfpacker.com and sign up for a year for just $1. Gets you premium access to the Wolfpacker.com and the On3 network for a whole year. So takes you all the way through this football season, all the way through basketball season, all the way up until week 1 of next year for just $1. So take advantage of it now. And yeah, that's it. So for Matt Carter, this is Justin Williams, and this has been the Wolfpacker Podcast.